I'm Magalie Laguerre-Wilkinson here again from Marrakesh, Morocco at the Diaspora Salon. We're having a little chat as we've been doing the last couple of days, this time with our other esteemed guest, Bryan Lattimore. Bryan is an entrepreneur, a jack of many trades, but you're doing some pretty spectacular stuff, are you not? Bryan, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you, Magalie.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, for taking the time. You're being pulled in all sorts of directions, so I appreciate you stepping up and coming to dedicate a little bit of time. Your work is described as how design, social influence, and content can help us remember the future. Remember the future. So sort of, talking about something, looking ahead, but yet remembering. What does that mean?
So a lot of my work and a lot of my life, I think, is sort of a mix of dreaming about the future and then thinking a lot about history in my own personal history. And so I grew up in Japan, and I have very beautiful, fond memories of my father, who's a Marine, and my mom worked in the Red Cross. Those imprints of growing up overseas and then moving all around the world really sort of have shaped who I am. And I think it shaped what I've heard, throughout this gathering. It shaped so many of us of our early sort of moments. And I think, remembering the future is really about sort of two things. One is...
and by the way, I'm going to cut you off right there for 1 second, that to our listeners out there, we are in Marrakesh, and it's the call to prayer right now. So if you're hearing this in the background, it's part of the setting. So please... help us remember the future. Tell us.
And I woke up to this.
Yes, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's really, and to sort of build on that point, remember the future is really about a prayer and an acknowledgement of where we come from. And I think there's so much beauty in Blackness. There's beauty in the fact that I grew up seeing my mother, who's a dark-skinned woman who was born in Chicago and grew up in Columbus, Georgia, the most beautiful woman that I know. And now my wife from Jacksonville, they are both the future and my history. They're both where I come from and the love that is my future, right, and my present. And so remembering the future is really acknowledging Black women, is acknowledging our ancestors, is acknowledging the wisdom that we are imparted through our own rituals, regardless of what the world tries to tell us about who we are. And I think the second thing is really an acknowledgement of our humanity, because remembering the future, oftentimes, at least in present day, I spend so much time, in the world of design or in content where I think there's so much sort of systemic and algorithmic programming that we are all sort of fighting against. And I think there's something beautiful about social influence, and it's sort of odd to say, but by being influenced by the people in our lives, by being influenced by being in community, and being present with one another, meeting you, like a just incredible sort of gift and honor that it's been, a really sort of both an incredible experience, but also a memory of what does it mean to be influenced and connected to one another. And I think my work at its highest place, at its highest vibration space, is really about showing people the pathway forward by helping us sort of look backward and find the inspirations, whether it be in your family, whether it be in yourself, whether it be in community, or hopefully all three ways that we can sort of continue to live and thrive together.
You mentioned the term algorithm, right, and design, and you were in this discussion the other day about that. That's very controversial right now too, because a lot of the minds behind that probably don't look so much like you and me sometimes. Or it's probably and it's not ill-intended. We're not here to say that people have bad intentions at all, but maybe they don't think through things. So how do you, because you're in that space, how do you navigate and remind people who are in power that you're still here, and that you're here, and that there are many people like you who are here? How is that received, and does something unlock in those minds?
Well, I think sort of two things as I think about sort of speaking truth to power, showing up in the fullness of our power and authentically, is that we're thinking and talking about social movements. We're thinking about systemic change, the ecology of movements. And my view is that all of us, I sort of wrote something about the evolution and how movements accelerate and move a long time ago, maybe about 7-8 years ago, at least in my own career. And it was the idea. I don't believe in silver bullets when it comes to change. I believe in sort of, you need a process. You need an orchestra, many instruments in order to get to the futures that places of abundance that I think we all want collectively for humanity. And so, part of that, you can't have a silver bullet. I don't think there's one approach or one response to power, to change, or to these systems. And so one of them is what a position I used to hold, which is when you work in the ivory tower, you got to show up and you got to shake shit up, which I think you can also speak to in your own career, where you by even just showing up and being you can be a revolutionary act. But then
my detriment, but go on.
Right? I mean, come on. And then the trauma that causes. Yeah. But we are needed in all spaces, right? So whether we're in the room and working at fill in the blank, LLM, big technology company, or, you're an executive assistant, or whether you're, a truck driver, it doesn't matter. We are all needed. We're all important, and our value is not connected to our title or to the position. But it does require us all to be, to recognize what is our role and what is the opportunity for us, and how do we show up and shake shit up. I think the second thing, though, is also to recognize that these structures sort of need us and our energies more than we need them. And so part of my response to that is also leaving the room to build our own new thing, right? So you can sort of play the inside game, or you can play the outside game. And again, because I don't believe in silver bullets, right now I'm playing the outside game. So how do I build new things? Because either way, we will be recognized and you will see us. And
they can't miss us.
They can't miss us. And so I think it's just, it's the continually doing the self sort of internal work to know, okay, where am I? And then what is my calling in this moment? How can I show up most powerfully? How can I create space for others? How can I encourage my brothers and sisters along the way? And how do I show up with love and humanity and learn? And that's what I feel like this has been so enriching with where we are right now, because it's, it's mostly, sisters, these women who've been here, who are sort of deep, incredible sort of trailblazers in their fields of study and sort of horizontally as well. And so part of my self-work is to show up in these spaces. And I mean, grateful to you and to Marianne for being in these rooms to learn and to speak my truth, but then also to create bonds and connections. So as we leave here, the work continues.
And about this place, because you mentioned the ivory tower. You've been in the ivory tower of tech, right? Very, very, in very close proximity to some pretty controversial people today. And yet here we are. This is a different kind of ivory tower. So for the people who are listening, can you describe what it means for you to be in a place like this? This isn't by accident. I think everyone who's here deserves to be here. But it's also, a testament to Marianne for having, the forethought to put this together. I mean, I'm sure salons like these existed. They have, not I'm sure. I know that they have. But they were sort of like kind of underground, or nobody wanted to shake shit up, But what does it mean for you to be in this space?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I actually think about what does it feel like to be here? And then for me, the feeling is not of an ivory tower, but one of a living room. So I feel like we are in, and I guess you could sort of play on that metaphor a few ways. I think number one is we're in literally Marianne and Gary's home. And there's a level of respect and a level of love and light that is here that you can feel. And so you move differently. At least I do in these spaces. The warmth is here. There's love here. When I walked in, Marianne introduced me to the table and gave me a hug. And then the next morning she saw me again and said, "Hey, everyone, it's Bryan." I mean, these are things where when I used to work at, sort of big, management consulting firms, or, I was not welcomed, in that way. And I think I've always continued to show up with love and intentionality. but just to be accepted differently here is a beautiful feeling, and one that I immediately called my wife and my son, and I mean, particularly my wife. I was like, you have to be here.
Next year.
But every year, yes, every year, Amy. And I think the second thing is this spaces as a living room this is a to sort of, given that Gary is a botanist, that this is a place of life. This is a place where things grow. This is a place where seeds are planted. This is a place where, you may not know exactly, we know seed time and harvest. We know seasonality, but we don't quite know what will come of this.
What's going to come of it, sure.
So this feels like a place of opportunity. This, it feels like a place of expectation, and of expectancy. And so I'm excited and grateful to be here.
And I don't know if you felt it too, in addition to, the bonding with people and minds, but you mentioned Gary, Marianne's husband, who is a botanist. There's also been a bonding with the earth, because everything we've been eating at some point has come from the land of this property. I don't know if it's had an effect on my brain or something, but it's been very nourishing in many ways. Well, listen, Bryan, this was a great little moment. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I think we'll be here next year, probably next March.
Hey, I pray so. Yes, I would love that.
Yeah, that would be great. So Bryan Lattimore, again, one of our other esteemed guests here as part of the Diaspora Salon from Marrakesh, Morocco. See you soon.